Hey everybody, welcome back to Cozy Amble. Tonight, I'm going to introduce myself in other videos. When I said I was Jon Snow in this situation, I was not kidding. With it being February, I wanted to do my January wrap-up. And for a little bit for goals, I lowered my reading goal for this year. In 2022, I read 170 books, which I am really proud of. Like, that's a really good number of books, but I kind of got burnt out on that number. So for this year, instead of setting a goal, I actually put it to 50, which compared to 170 seems really low, but I think it'll allow me to enjoy books, take my time, and then when I, hopefully find more books that I really enjoy. In January, I also keep a reading journal. I started it last year, and that was something I really liked. I kind of keep track of, and it's really not complicated at all. I do these super simple spreads with just some stickers I found. I mean, I kind of wanted to be January a little bit more of a treat yourself month, so that's where that was going. And in January, I read a total of 7 books, which feels like a reasonable amount. That's almost 2 a week. Not quite there. Most of these books I did get from the library, so hopefully I figure out how to put a little picture right here for you so you guys can see the cover and everything like that. And then I also really like mentioning what format I read it in, because I find sometimes certain formats really lend themselves to certain books. Like certain versions are really good, or the reading experience might be better in a certain format. So I figured I'd always tell you guys that just in case. But anyways, the first book, it was kind of something everybody talked about in my childhood, and I feel like a lot of people read it and they really liked it. I didn't know things about the author then that I do now, so I kind of feel weird saying it. But I did read Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. In terms of books, I really did enjoy this book. I gave it 4 stars. It's like military science fiction with children. It's all about strategy and learning things, and I did it as an audiobook. I really enjoyed that experience. I wish we can have nice things and not get things ruined. So I don't think I'll talk too much about that book just for that reason, because I don't really want to support that. I would also be amiss if I pretend like I didn't read that. And then the next book I read was The Joy of Doing Just Enough, The Secret Art of Being Lazy and Getting Away with It, by Jennifer McCarthy. This was also an audiobook. It was super short, kind of self-helpy. I feel like this is one of those books that either it really resonates with you or with it doesn't. I read it, I felt like a lot of the tips were very obvious to me personally. It is super short, which is a good thing about it, but I didn't really there isn't anything on there that she kind of said that I didn't feel like I already did, or was obvious, or was helpful. Maybe if you're really looking for struggling with perfectionism and you kind of want another viewpoint, this might be helpful for you. Maybe I don't know. I gave it 1 star. I literally gained nothing from this, but if you did, that's fantastic. I'm sure that this has been eye-opening for some people. It was just not for me. And then the third one I read was The Empress of Salt and Fortune by Nevo. This was actually a reread. I physically read this last year, and I liked it so much I did it as an audiobook. This was one of the ones I was talking about where sometimes the format you read it in really does impact it, because for me personally, I think I like the physical reading experience a lot better. The audiobook was good, the audiobook was good quality, but there's something about reading it in my hands physically that just increased the ambience. I'm not sure. Am I weird? Is that a weird thing to say? But yeah, that's what I kind of got, is that I preferred physical to audio on this one. The audiobook is still really good. I liked both experiences. If this is a book you're kind of interested in picking up, you know, whatever format you prefer or whatever format works for you, definitely go ahead and get it that way for sure. But basically, The Empress of Salt and Fortune, it's the story of a monk called Chi, and they're kind of traveling the lands, and they learn stories from basically anybody they can to kind of record it. And they've got this really cool bird friend named Almost Brilliant who kind of helps them record. The bird has a really, really good memory, and the bird also helps them kind of keep notes of everything. Really good representation. She is non-binary, uses they, them pronouns. And I just really like how it's kind of like inserted in the story, and that's that. Like, everybody respects they, them, but it's really inspired by Chinese folklore. So I really liked those elements. It was a really cool way to bring in something like that to the story, and I really liked it. Overall, the physical book, I think I gave it 5 stars when I read it. Like, it was one of my, oh gosh, I was thinking of my favorite books of 2022, and I don't think this made it. But now that I'm thinking about it, this should have made it. It's also a novella, super short. So like if you're looking for like a short book to keep your numbers up, like this would be a good one to pick up. The next book I read, book 4, was actually, it's one of the ones that I had a physical copy for. The Soul of an Octopus by Cy Montgomery. This is kind of a combination of memoir and nonfiction, I would say. You follow Cy and like her journey as she learns more about octopuses and as she visits various octopuses in an aquarium. You learn about them, Octavia and Athena and Karma and a bunch of them, and it was really cool, and about her going out in the wild and wanting to see an octopus in the wild, and kind of how, just like this, the tagline says, a surprising exploration to wonder of consciousness, and how octopuses seem to really respond to their environment and what does it mean to be conscious, and kind of like that little exploration. It is pretty short, it's not that long, but I thought it was a really interesting way to relay information. It made it personal because it was Cy kind of advocating. It was a really cool way to get information because you were kind of learning it through Cy's viewpoints and their exploration into octopuses and what it means, and then Cy learning and seeing things and kind of all those explorations. Basically, after I read this book, octopuses are really cool. I want to go, like, I gotta figure out how to scuba dive so I can also go and see an octopus. Overall, I gave it 3 stars. I wish there was actually more nonfiction component, which I think is most probably the unpopular opinion, but I would love like a little bit more research or articles and kind of bouncing back on this. I mean, she would definitely had more of a general audience in mind. Like, most people don't super interested in numbers and results and data and stuff like that. I would have liked a little bit more about that. And it was definitely a slower paced book, so it definitely kind of takes its time and you kind of wander along, but it also made it like a really relaxing read. So if you're kind of looking for a little bit more octopuses in your life, this would be a good one. Then the other book, next one I read was A Curious Beginning by Deanna Raybourn. This was also an audiobook. Got it from Libby, which Libby is a fantastic app. I don't know if you guys know about it, but you gotta get on it. That's how I read 170 books last year for sure. I did this as an audiobook, so lots of people really enjoy it. It's basically like a Victorian era mystery series. Cozy mystery series is often what they're categorized as. This is the very first one. I listened to it as an audiobook, and I see why people enjoy the book. I really like our main character, Veronica Speedwell. She's kind of sassy. She's not the embodiment of a Victorian era woman. She does her own thing. She takes lots of lovers. She's kind of grumpy in her own right. Kind of like I know this is also like a super slow burn and it's supposed to be like, you know, grumpy trope. I just didn't like it. Like, on paper, this should be a book I really like. I would still recommend this to others. Like, even though I didn't like it, I see why other people did. So like, if you're looking for, You know, you want those Victorian vibes, you want it to be like a mystery, you want some adventure, you want a little bit of hijinks, you want a female main character who is really proactive and does her own thing and goes after stuff and is intelligent. Definitely take this up. I'm definitely in the minority. I only gave it 2 stars. And most people I've seen gave it, 3, 4. Some people's, it's on some people's favorites list. If you want to tell me why I'm wrong in the comments, please do. The 6th book I read, this one, was The Loneliest Girl in the Universe by Lauren James. This is a sci-fi book. It basically takes place on a spaceship, and I'm a sucker for sci-fi. I kind of love everything like that. I love the twists and turns. I love metal and gear and gadgets and everything like that. This one was really interesting. I did the audiobook. It wasn't really, I like audiobooks like this because they do talk about auditory transitions, auditory transmissions. The loneliest girl in the universe, she's basically stuck on this spaceship. What is her name? I literally read this book and I don't even remember her name. Well, that's embarrassing. She is basically the only one alive on the spaceship. You don't know what happens. Something catastrophic happens. She's now the only one alive. And this spaceship is kind of on its way to colonize another planet. I should look that up because that's really gonna bother me. Romy. She's the only person alive on this spaceship that has gone off to colonize another planet with no life forms on it currently. But I mean, like the title says, she's the only one there, so it kind of chronicles her, living on this spaceship, and then stuff happens. It is YA. I've found that the older I get, the more I don't really like YA for some reason. It doesn't really draw me in. It's not something I find I relate to as much. But that's a me thing, not this book thing. If you are kind of looking for a more YA sci-fi book with a female heroine and kind of a unique storyline, it did have a twist. I mean, the twist was kind of obvious to me, like you can kind of put it together ahead of time. It's interesting though, it wasn't exactly what I was expecting. It's kind of one of those things where you get some of it but not all of it, but the parts you did get kind of made everything else seem lackluster. Do you know what I'm trying to say? You know what I'm saying? Okay. But yeah, it was fine. I gave it a solid 3 stars. I think a 3 star is good. I feel like a 3 star is like an average book, in my opinion. I mean, average is like 2.5, but like a 3 stars, like it's solid. Nothing necessarily to write home about. Like I don't really regret reading it. I most probably won't remember too much of it later. And I kind of happen to be like a hard critic of books. I don't mean to be, but I really try to rate based on how I enjoyed the book, which I usually kind of recommend is rate based on enjoyment, not like objectively what the book is, just because, if you do use Goodreads or something like that, I look at a book and I see that I only rated it 2 stars. It might be a good book, but if I know I didn't like that for some reason, then that'll help me, if people are recommending another book by the same author, like I'll just, know to look out for it. The very last book I read was Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. This one I also did by audio. I find I like a lot of audio sci-fi books. It's kind of like a contemporary fiction. There are a lot of threads of video games, but the video games aren't really, like, it's like the vehicle used to tell a story. It's kind of like a combination, like coming of age, dealing with life and how friendships develop over the years, which I found was really interesting, like the commentary on how friendships can ebb and flow and you can come together and drift apart, and how certain things can cause rifts, and then over years those rifts can be repaired. Somebody who loves games, they did reference the original Harvest Moon, which I just liked that little reference, so I had to mention it. If you don't like video games or anything like that, you still understand a lot of it. But yeah, I see why a lot of people really like this book. It does have a diverse cast of characters. The main character, Sam, is American Korean, and kind of him dealing with that, and then there's also him dealing with illnesses. And I give like very bland summaries, but like I don't like a lot of spoilers. I just want to kind of like go off vibes. Like, tell me a little bit and like I want to learn more. Anybody else like me? Just me? Yeah, but I give it 4 stars. If you're considering picking up this book, just go ahead and do it. Those were the 7 books I read in January. If I would love to hear what you read in January. I would love to hear about your favorite books. I don't really do TBRs because I find I'm very much a move reader. I get a lot from the library. If you guys have any recommendations on books I should read based on what I like this month, what you should, things you should read, shouldn't read, kind of anything like that, please let me know. I'm always looking for good recs. I'm always looking for interesting books to read. Hidden gems are my favorite. I'm so glad you guys, if you made it all the way to the end, like, thank you so much. Just like dipping my feet in. Do you dip your toes in? Well, that's embarrassing. But anyways, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and thank you so much for watching.